100% off the strength, man.
Off the strength.
I did it all on the strength, all on the strength. Fuck talking, I'ma do this off the strength.
Run it back, can't relax, that's just facts off the strength.
It's off the strength. Can't get that off the strength.
Feel like I be really trying not to die on the wrong hill, bro. And in that process, I've been confronting my own hypocrisy, Kyle.
Okay.
You ever have to dance with your own hypocrisy, bro?
Every goddamn day.
I'm talking about, like, seriously, if you cohabitate and, you know, your mess versus their mess, you know, it's always going to be a different situation.
Blink twice if you need help. Just let me know. What's going on, fam? This is KR Jones of the Off the Strength podcast, and I am here to tell you to like, listen, subscribe, and if you're feeling freaky, visit offthestrength.com. That's where you can go and get more information on us. That's where we can link, we can build, we can connect, and let's make this thing work.
I need time for processing versus procrastinating. Not the same situation, you know what I mean? And then there's the right way to do something, and then there's the preferred way to do something.
Yes.
It's going to cause many a debate.
The preferred way is the universal way.
Exactly.
Some say.
Sometimes you got to learn the preferred way. Yeah. So you understand what I'm saying, man?
Over here, we do this.
Yeah, you ever have to
together
make sure you check your own hypocrisy to not die on the wrong hill?
Yeah, for sure.
Tell me about the time, bro.
No, man, you all right. You need to talk on it. You good? Because you keep trying to set me up. I've gone back and listened to these podcasts that are set up every week. And I'm not falling for your shenanigans today, Tom.
What's good, everybody? What's good? Welcome back to yet another episode of Off the Strength. We give you an inside look into all things wellness culture. I'm a trainer called Tony, and of course, with me, I got a gentleman of extraordinary league.
KR Jones is in the building.
That's right, folks. We are back. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all type from near and far, you are now in store for a treat because it's the return of the variety show. That's when we give you our best foot forward. So hopefully you take your best foot forward. You do that two-step, that tango, whatever it is you need to do to make it on through the week with the best goddamn wellness information available.
Yay.
Now, Brother Jones, I don't know why you think I'll be setting you up for defeat, my friend. I just be trying to ask the questions that need some answers out here, my man. I know people be going through it at home, so I know somebody that is a learned professional such as yourself has an opinion on some of these things, man.
For sure. If we're talking about which hill to die on, please be strategic with what you decide to back, what you decide to emote on, if you will, even down to facial expressions. Beware of how you respond and not react.
I know that hypocrisy is a mirror in that case.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll be hearing it and I got to build in that
I don't even gotta say it. It's like, I don't like the way your face look. Why your face look like that? It's my face. I don't even... I control it, but like it just be on autopilot sometimes.
We got to put in some moments to examine our values with the hope of moving forward, my man. And speaking of moving forward, how was you moving through this week, brother?
Man, this week has been heavy. There's no other way to put it. I can't dance around it. And I got to start off with prayers to the folks in LA.
Absolutely.
And as someone who allowed themselves to be open at the start of this year, of like really manifesting a fresh start, a new lease on life, and you can't ignore other people's pain. Yeah. Especially when me personally, I've dealt with so much. So it was really giving me that lens on what advice could I give to someone who has nothing left. Right? Mm-hmm. And the first thing that came to mind was realizing that losing everything isn't everything when you're still alive and breathing. Yeah. You know? And we often lose sight of that sometimes. And although it feels like your life is over, I promise you, there's so much more life to live. You know, in that moment when the unthinkable happens, you can only look to move forward, right? And you have to approach each new day moving forward as a blessing because it is. And when you have air in your lungs and blood flowing through your body, you know, you have to be appreciative of just the simplest thing, you know? And that's just kind of where the heart was, man. Even thinking through, like, sorting through the process of, like, what insurance or relocating and regrouping is going to be far from easy, but it's just not going to be impossible.
Yeah, it's difficult to have appreciation from that on the inciting part of the, like, trauma that you're going through, right?
For sure.
Like when it's super fresh, it's hard for anybody to see that, you know, the best possible outlook on that side. And at the same point in time, that is when you do need that optimism, that faith, that whatever it is to help you move forward and move through. It does start by counting your blessings, man. Like I have reached out to a bunch of the homies that I had over there in LA who's gone through evacuation series. They have dealt with wildfire seasons at different points in life, but now they're saying this year was just unprecedented. You had to evacuate twice to save your life and your family's life. Like that's a hell of a way to start off the year.
Yeah.
You know, that's a hell of a lot of trauma to process, honestly, and still have a optimistic outlook on life. And I too, was trying to find some silver lines around these clouds, Kyle, and it was a difficult task to take on through the week. But I did have some places that I did, you know, find some places to be more uplifted. And first and foremost, I want to shout out just anybody who has gone through this first full week of the year and has still stuck with whatever their New Year's ambition is. I gotta salute you for that, because this is the first mile marker, and this is the time when people have a chance to kind of deviate from that plan. So if you made it through this far, salute to you. The next person I want to send some shout outs to is I gotta salute the homie Purcell, you know, and everything that they did over at the Fit for Us activation that we went to over at Dumbo House. I want to unpack that a little deeper later. But the idea around starting off the year with the right vision was something that brought me into what I want to talk about in this week's Ask the Professional, Kyle. See, it's the combination of all of these things that we're talking about that, you know, really test you at times where you're really trying to either make that advancement or move into a different level, right? So when I hear about things that either excite me or things that make me feel like I need to jump into action, but sometimes rushing to action can be to your own detriment, right? The difference between acting through urgency and the difference between acting through desperation can drastically impede the outcomes, right? So I want to ask the professional this week, how can individuals differentiate between taking action with urgency versus acting out of desperation? And what are some strategies they can use to ensure they're making sound decisions in high pressure situations?
That's a hell of a question, brother. And the first thing that comes to mind to me is pace. Mm-hmm. Right. That's going to be the only thing separating move made from desperation and something from urgency. Right. And when I briefly think about pace, I'm thinking about something as simple as this morning when I'm running late, I'm behind because I messed up my timelines and I'm rushing to make up for this lost time. And in that moment, I realized it's already been done, right? Like I can't speed up time at this point. I'm already late. The worst thing that I can do is hurt myself by trying to overcompensate, right? And when it comes to the matters of being urgent or being desperate, you should never be desperate. And any moves made out of desperation should only be life or death, right? Like it should only be that I gotta evacuate New Orleans or I gotta leave LA. No other decision should be made from that mood solely because that's so much trauma on your mind, like on the psychology and the space that you have to be in mentally to make those type of decisions.
Yeah.
When it comes to something that's urgent, that just should mean a priority, right? And priorities come from having plans in place, right?
Yeah.
When you have everything mapped out, so to speak, you talked about the vision and creating earlier, that's when you can then start to move up what is urgent based upon priority of what is needed, what do I need to accomplish, who do I need to talk to, whatever the case may be, if it's community that you're pulling on. But no one is going to do that work for you, and it's up to you to decide, you know, what the throttle is or what the marker is to turn up which.
Yeah, I think differentiating urgency versus desperation, it does come from that ability to understand which priorities you have. So I don't think people elect to move out of desperation by and large, but they do feel the pressure of whatever their situation is and they have to move reflexively. So that ends up being something that keeps you on the same loop in life, right? Some of the strategies to get around that is pausing and reflecting, right? So before taking any action, can you really stop and assess the situation? That's one of the basic kind of triage things that we learn as professionals in this health and wellness space.
I was about to say, you took me right back to college with that.
You got to survey the scene.
Yeah.
What all is going on? What's the story that I'm telling myself versus what am I actually seeing around here? If you don't take that time to really reflect the pressure of the situation could just be coming from panic and not from the actual like outcomes that you're going to go for, right? After you get through that, you need to clarify your intentions, which comes right back to that whole visioning aspect that you were talking about, right? So consider if the actions that you want to make are aligning with the long-term goals or values that you have. You know, you can be purposeful in that, meaning you can make that urgent. To Kyle's point earlier, you know, that's the level set and priority kind of thing, but you don't want to be moving out of impulse primarily, right? And then the last part that I would want to ask or add on to is to seek a second perspective. You know, sometimes when we are really treading water as hard as possible and life is lifing to the fullest degree, it might take somebody who is outside of that state of mind to give you some perspective to help you figure out where you need to go. And that should always be from a trusted source.
I couldn't agree more. I'm definitely just in agreement with, again, the strategy that you give people to get out of these situations. It's not impossible. It's just work that needs to be done. And if you view that work as an opportunity and you seize that moment, you think your progress will be uninhibited.
In light of the trying times, we're still looking for that silver line so we can seize the moment and seize the day, right? And speaking of seizing the day, Kyle, I had some headlines seize me throughout the course of my week, and I want to get into them right now. It's going to be time for a little bit of good. It's going to be time for some bad.
All right.
And it's going to be time to talk about some ugly things this week, Kyle. That's right. It's time for this episode of Rip from the Headlines. Now, first things first, I'm going to start off at the top of the year. Good Morning America and The Right Stuff put out a list of the fitness essentials that you need for your best workout in 2025. Now, Kyle, I'm going to spare you the details on this list, right? One thing stood out to me in particular that I did not know existed, and it sent me down a rabbit hole that had me looking up all different types of exercises. Kyle, are you familiar with the weighted hula hoop?
Absolutely not.
So the weighted hula hoop, first thing I got to point out, is not the classic device that I thought it was.
Is that right?
And that I grew up with. It does not look anything like the device that you know to be a hula hoop. I don't know if I'm dating myself in that process, but take a look at what the weighted hula hoop actually looks like. I feel like they should have came up with a whole different name for this device. But give me some of your first initial reactions off of the weighted hula hoop and some of the videos that you're seeing right now.
The weighted hula hoop is far from, again, what I had envisioned. And I think I, too, am dated on what this weighted hula hoop looks like. When I look at the motion is still the same, but the object has changed drastically. I don't know if that's a reflection of technology or just, you know, the innovation of where we are present day.
Yeah, so I went down this rabbit hole. First of all, nobody could actually trademark the original hula hoop because everybody was bootlegging that thing as soon as it came out.
You'd be surprised, you know?
No, I'm telling you.
LeBron Taco Tuesday it out, you know what I'm saying?
I went down the whole pathway. They was like, yo, this thing came out and lost money immediately because everybody started bootlegging it. It was one of the craziest lines that you ever saw, right? So the fact that they gave this the same name is wild to me. But as a professional, that's not my actual question. Kyle, I want to know, this type of workout does have some efficacy. What's your thoughts on these type of motions in particular? And would you try the weighted hula hoop?
Listen, that ain't nothing but the SpongeBob bringing around town. You know what I'm saying? If you know that reference, I love you for that. If you don't, go look it up, right? But I do think that there is some credence, if you will, to the motion that is actually happening. Hula hooping is another form of like cardio that most people wouldn't recognize. And I'm not mad at it. I'm looking at it like it looks crazy. Don't get me wrong. Like you pull this out in the wrong space and questions are going to get asked and they're not going to be friendly. So I do want people to be cautious of taking that step into new tech, but I'm not going to shoot it down because I'm here for people elevating.
Okay. The second part of that question was, would you try it?
Me, myself? Nah, I'm old school. You know what I'm saying?
I was about to say, we were about to set it up right now.
I don't even smoke them douche flutes. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. We gonna get it on the 25.
About the vape, you know.
It's a 2025 essential piece of workout equipment that I want Kyle to try out this year, but he's denied me in that. So I'm gonna move on to the next story, man.
You got it.
Next up, Kyle, Nike After Dark. When I say those words to you, what comes up to you?
I've known you for a long time. This isn't the time or the place.
What comes to mind, my friend?
nothing that I want to go to.
So the Nike After Dark Tour was not catering to you in the first place. So
Of course
you
it wasn't.
take your mind out the gutter, sir. We're going to talk about the Nike After Dark Tour series, right? So as a part of its ongoing mission to invite more women into sport, Nike has announced that the After Dark Tour is going to be the pinnacle of expression of how Nike wants to champion women runners this year, right? So the tour is going to invite runners into the night to run their 10K series in 6 major cities, including Sydney, Shanghai, Seoul, Mumbai, and Los Angeles and Mexico City, right? So the whole thing is going to be an integration of just different community-based events. There's going to be tours. There's going to be a concert series going on. After the portfolio took a pretty big hit last year, it looks like they were really doubling down on a category that has been proven to work for everybody. But the problem with that strategy is that they got to compete with everybody. What's your thoughts on hearing this Nike After Dark Tour?
When you lay that out, I'm thinking about Nike trying to connect their communities and really run this play for a long time. It seems like they tried to push this with soccer for a little bit too. I remember like somewhat of like a tennis push a little bit with Naomi Osaka, but really uniting the communities around the world against this global product that you have is something that they've strived for. In theory, it sounds great. Run, as we know and talked about on the podcast, has been a huge boom as the primary athletic event for adults outside of any other sport, I would say.
Yeah.
And if they are competing with all of these other companies, they got to stay original. And this is something that I feel like they've done originally. So I would look to them to pioneer. What it could look like, you never know.
The look is fresh. I got to say that this is one of the better looking campaigns that I've seen come out. Just with the whole After Dark, the different colors that they're using in the silhouettes and everything else. It looks like it could be something that I want to keep attention to, especially when they touch it down in the cities that were mentioned before, my man. And I got a side note. Speaking about women's running, I got to shout out to Hildy Dossenge, 55-year-old Belgian woman who is the first woman in history to run a marathon every day of the year. She ran 365 marathons last year. I got to keep talking about these people who decide to get up and go run. These type of distances, I don't know who is in their family that they're trying to get away from, but this had to take an exorbitant amount of time during Hildy's day. You get up and do a marathon a day.
Listen, that's a radical decision.
She did it.
For sure. And I don't know if it's a legacy thing or just a silent-ass protest, but it is a powerful decision to make nonetheless. Shout out to her for that. I'm going to shout out Run Girl. I'm going to shout out Jasmine Nessie.
Yeah, for sure.
Ashley Lawson Green. Shout out them for being pioneers in that space that we talked 2 years ago. So there are women doing amazing things in the running world specifically. So I am happy to see that being highlighted.
There we go, man. Her mindset and her mantra throughout the entirety of this was that the mental aspect was way tougher than the physical. I gotta say that after 365 days of straight marathoning, the chafing and the blistering alone has to have some type of physical impact. But I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna try to understand where that's at.
How do you even have the time to do that?
That's what I'm saying. Like we don't have.
That's like 3 hours. Imagine 3 hours of every day just. And that's a
3 is an elite level.
That's
marathon.
what I'm saying. 3 is an elite level. Let's actually just push that to a moderate 5. Let's just push it to a moderate 4 and some change.
You're not knocking out 5 7 days a week for 365 days.
That's what I'm saying.
You got some 8-hour days, 10-hour days on that time.
That's like your job. Imagine your 9
job.
to 5 is a marathon every single day, and you go home and wake up and just do the same thing. That is craziness.
Hey, man, shout out to her keeping the Forrest Gump dream alive, my man. And that last thing I want to talk about, Kyle, is that this past week at the Consumer Electronics Show, you familiar with what that is?
Absolutely not.
It's the only trade show that showcases the entirety of the tech landscape, Kyle.
Everything?
Everything inside of tech.
Sex toys too?
All things tech culture, right? So we're all things wellness, they're all things tech. If you're getting off with a little bit of a digital doodad, you will find it at CES, okay? But that's not what I was here for, Kyle. I was talking about a different type of health, not the sexual health. Kyle, what if I told you that there was a mirror out there that can give you a complete body scan and give you all of your health markers and all of your biometric data from you just standing in front of a mirror?
We are done as a people.
Omnia from We Things is a concept that was rolled out this week at CES, and it is looking at all the different biometric markers to be able to display you. I want to say this is kind of like a concept car for biohackers that's rolling out right here, right? Meaning the fact that sometimes a concept car will come out on the auto shows, right? And you will never see this hit the full production for a number of different reasons, mainly because the shit is way too expensive for you to actually drive a production model of this. But this Omnia pretty much is giving an insight to all of the things that they have potential to do right now, just combining them and putting them into one type of platform. And they're really looking for this diagnostic tool to be a bridge between the healthcare system and what is going on inside of wellness. What's your thoughts about hearing? You can get I'm talking about full blood profile. Yeah. I'm talking about CT scans, like a complete body scan, and get all of your health metrics off of something that looks very much just like a mirror.
This is a two-sided coin. I want to remind the folks that we just talked about Brian Johnson and all the money he was spending on his body.
Yep.
I want to also note that this technology has already existed. It just hasn't been condensed into something like a mirror, right? This is another form of technology merging together, and essentially just the idea of something like an iPhone, where you take a computer, a laptop, and an iPod, put it all into one thing, and now that's the new norm. So noting that should be and is the new norm, the other side of that coin being, I'm giving my blood to a digital mirror, or this digital entity knows everything about me enough down to my blood type.
Yeah.
That's wild information to just have out into the internets, into the ether. There's people out there that didn't even have their whole name known or government name. And now you're telling me you know my blood type? I don't know where that information is going to land, and I'm not, altruistic enough to want to think that the world is going to do good with that type of information.
We're just getting closer to Brian Johnson's dream of what living forever is going to look like.
I'm not trying to make the superior race, none of that other.
That's when you get a little
jargon. Like, let's stay away from the blending of that. Like, I love everybody individually as you are. Create who you want to create, but let's just make better people.
Nah, that first step in that is just make everybody look the same, and then we're gonna all start to advance past
then everybody gonna start dressing like Kanye's Runway and the Homeless Chic and no names, and just everybody's gonna be a
sock
color.
Shoes.
That's a brown dude right there. Oh, that's a green dude right there, and that's just it. We all gonna be a Crayola box of humans.
That's it, man. That's all I have from this week's episode of Rip from the Headlines, sir. What did you see on your side of the fitness streets?
Sheesh. Man, the fitness streets was a loose term, but we're going to talk about what I saw just in general that I'm going to relate to fitness.
Okay.
Speaking of that Crayola box, are you familiar with the color red tone?
I believe I am.
When I talk about red, I'm talking about D Rose's farewell Chicago Red Rose Tour. And it was definitely one of the most heartfelt NBA farewells I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
When I think about D Rose as a player, I'm thinking of someone that really had to struggle through adversity, through injuries. We often reminisce on players that were great, got injured, and we never heard from again. D Rose just happened to be one of those people that I feel like we really got to see grow up and mature through, early on, from his high school to college to just the explosive player he was in the NBA to being a father, right? And being able to share his moment with his son, much like LeBron has with his and everybody else. Like, we're really growing into that. When you saw the roses on the field, on the court specifically for D Rose, how did you feel about just this whole farewell tour?
Man, I'm happy to see that brother get his flowers. One, I think his story is always going to be a captivating one because his raw power and potential is always going to be something that people, if you saw it in the peak of it, this man was taking that team to different levels and heights that it didn't make sense for them to be in during the reign of some of the greatest basketball players of all time, right? His name, I think rightfully so, should be in the pantheons of the LeBrons and the Melos and everybody else that had to go up against him and knew that dude was just, again, a guard that you did not see play game like that.
That was a bad night of sleep you had.
Yeah.
Knowing you had to face him the next day.
He had everything that you could possibly think of from the skills position, but his explosiveness was ultimately also the thing that did him in, right? Like, it was such a event to see him play, but then also such an event to see him get injured, because it's like he's never going to be the same. But he continued to evolve and become different people along that route. And I think you could always document a black man's physical journey and emotional journey with their hair journey. I saw how this brother's hair has evolved through the whole process. He's now hit the higher echelon of D Rose, so I gotta salute him for that.
He got locks now, bro. That's the rose that grew from the concrete.
There
I
we
would
go.
not let you talk bad about my guy like that.
I never said that. That was nothing bad. I was just saying you could tell the progression, bro.
His evolution. I mean, being from Chicago too. That's a whole nother layer of Chicago folks that we talk about often. But I'm gonna slide into this idea of giving people their roses.
Yeah.
Now, Brother Tone, just a couple of days ago, actually, there was the funeral of former President Jimmy Carter.
Yes, sir.
Now, as you know, especially when there's something that's very military or, political, if you will, a lot of those funerals involve so much other people to come in. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
You get that veterans kind of treatment where it's very ceremonial.
Yeah, the pomp, the circumstance, everything is very much like the president is the commander in chief, so you get a lot of the militaristic kind of
Send off.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and with that, there's a lot of stillness, if you will. Now, being still is one thing. Being still when the wind is treacherous against you, holding the flag is a whole nother thing. Now, Brother Tone, I want to show you a video of a young man who was holding a flag for President Jimmy Carter, and this brother was struggling, Tone.
Yeah, man.
Now, when I show you this video, I want you, as the wellness professional, to give me a breakdown on what exactly you see him experiencing.
First of all, the winds were up to like 60 miles an hour, right? We can't act like that's a normal wind. It's not just like a light breeze. 60 miles an hour is insane.
When I can see it on the camera, where it's like everybody's jacket is going to the left.
So we can't give this brother a hard time, right?
Yeah.
Next, he's doing an isometric hold with something that's got to be at least 40 pounds.
Yes.
With now a sail on it. This is like, y'all was setting him up for failure to begin with. And the fact that he did as much as he did, he needs a Purple Heart. Something in that direction, because this is craziness right here. This is definitely action in the heart of valor right here. He's facing the winds that are treacherous. And he knows the cameras are on him this entire time.
Oof.
So I don't want that job. Nobody would sign up for that job, bro.
That's my follow-up question is, do you think this brother was chosen to do this, or was this a punishment?
I feel like you go through the rankings, and this is something that he has done before. Maybe not at this level, and damn sure not
Never
at this speed.
temperature or this speed. This combination of the two.
Anybody that had jokes for him, I really want them to try to do a static hold with a bar that is, I would say, your standard Olympic bar. Just hold that out in front of you and just try to walk with that out in front of you with no flag on it. Now, after you do that, have one of your friends push you violently in different directions and see if you can stay still during that whole time.
That is a trainer called Tony. Or anybody that tries that, you were on your own. You didn't get that from the Off the Strength podcast. But that is crazy, and that is exactly the picture that I saw, which painted this picture for me, Tone, of a quitter's day.
Yeah.
If there was ever a day for me to quit, it
would be that day.
It would have been that day.
See, ironically, if he would have had that weighted hula hoop now, that core stability, anti-rotation,
it might have improved his game.
Handy.
He would have had to have 2 sandbags.
Right? If you train for it, see, this is what I'm trying to tell you, Kyle. You knocked it.
Do a couple of these little peel-off presses.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Just get a couple weights in front of him, hula hoop at the same time. He's ready for the next one. You know, I don't want to say it, but you know Joe don't got a lot of time. He gonna have to run this back.
So you saying he should do this?
He start training today. He gonna run it right back. He's solid, good to go, bro.
This man, I ain't even gonna say what you just did. We're gonna slide out of that and how you mistreated somebody. But I'm gonna bring up that Quitter's Day topic again because we once covered a ladder commercial, and I'm here again because now you have Carl the Quitter Day Fairy trolling people in the gym for a ladder commercial. And this Carl happens to be Stravos. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but you know who I'm talking about.
Very Greek last name.
The Greekest last name there is, but he is a fellow Baltimorean, and he did go to my rival high school, so I feel a need to keep up with him majority of the time. He is a funny comedian. How do you feel about seeing this?
First of all, Ladder has been kicking ass in their whole campaigns coming into 2025, bro. They have not missed just yet. I think it's amazing to see the humor that they're injecting into this, plus the people that they're selecting to pull this stuff off has been top shelf. So whoever's running those campaigns, salute to you. They are making it make sense. And the message connects, bro. It's something that's funny, but it's also something that keeps you in mind. Hey, I need some accountability. We might need to download this app and see where we're going to go.
I mean, you talked about Quitter's Day earlier and in the previous episode. Any insights on someone now reaching this milestone?
There's a reason why people are staying ahead of that, bro. It's like, yo, this is a real topic. This is when all of the bullshit from the year that you thought you did away with on December 31st is like, surprise, we right back inside here.
Surprise, surprise.
Hey, you're going to have to be that person that you wanted to be. You're going to have to be it right now in the midst of all of this bullshit happening. So it's not only timely, it's something that is a truism, and it's going to reign, true with a lot of people that hear that and feel that. It's like, all right, hey, man, that first cold day when you're going out and you're trying to make it to wherever you need to make it, you got a little bit of a hesitation on there. It's like, these are the times where you got to really dig down. All right, is my discipline going to be the thing that gets me through, or is it going to be my motivation, like my brother Jones said?
Listen, those are real life questions, brother. So I definitely send love to anybody dilly-dallying with that type of decision making. I do want to end on this note, briefly just scratching the surface on TikTok shutting down January 19th.
Yeah.
Now, I know you aren't someone that is on there avidly as I am, and I have definitely been on this app and wasted some good time on there before. Just from your perspective, just how do you feel about this potential happening and the effects of it?
First thing, I gotta really be worried about my grandmother. I don't know what she's gonna spend her time with.
You just mentioned she was on there. You better stop talking about her.
She told me that too. Listen. She told me, she was like, you only got one more time to get that off. So I felt like, get it out the way early, right? That's my primary concern. Where's she gonna go now?
With that left real quick.
The second thing that I would want to highlight about this is all of the people that was using that platform to perpetuate their own personal brands and to help themselves monetize that. This is the danger that happens when your entire business model is built on something that you don't own or that you have the capability of losing in some regard, right? So these digital properties, if you don't actually own them, somebody else is putting you out as the actual product, right? Yeah. So that means you're going to be subject to whatever they say. I've had friends and people that we have talked about on the show. Salute to Solange, the weed auntie. She's lost a platform just because of regulatory issues on Instagram, right? I've seen people lose whole accounts that they don't have any means to reach out to all these people that was following them before, right? So it brings up the idea of anti-fragility in my mind as a person who is creating digital assets. Like, what does that need to look like? What are your behaviors that you have to go through? And how do you really try to fortify yourself in this age where it's so valuable to build yourself up and build up your personal brand on some of these, spaces that would offer you an opportunity to monetize? And at the same time, you have to remember that if you don't own it, you have to be pushing people to a place that you do.
Man, I've just thinking about the levels and layers of that conversation, and I'm at a point where the people that are just arriving at that point, I'm sad that you're late to this party, but this is something that you should have been thinking about because we've seen this happen with the changeover of different social media platforms. When you look at your digital assets as a business and realize the digital currency we're in present day. I was watching a documentary, or I was watching something actually. I don't even remember if it was a documentary. It might have actually been a TikTok, but it was somebody breaking down the science behind every time you swipe down on your phone, that's money. Every look, every impression you leave, every click, everything you zoom in on is money, and that's digital, right? So when you start to look at the things that you post and the messages behind them, you have to have a way to capitalize off the platform in the event that it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I don't know if I believe that this is going to actually go through. I think somebody in the last hour is probably going to end up buying it, which opens up a whole nother conversation, to who owns what. At the end of the day, when you're buying those digital properties,
you're selling yourself.
It's going to look crazy if another the only other place that can come in is a tech company to do that, right? And there's only but like 3 or 4 of them that have enough money to actually pay for what that needs to run like in the U.S. proper. And that would be a monopoly if we were talking about anything that wasn't a tech company. For some reason, they have circumvented all of those rules and jurisdiction. And that's when I start to get into the space where it's kind of like, all right, this is when the third dimension to this chess game starts to get real dark real quick.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, hey, we are doing more than just posting fun dances on this thing. You are programming people to a certain extent. Now, who's in charge of that? Seems like the U.S.
TikTok,
wants to be
brought to you by Ozempic
yeah, exactly.
and GLP-1 drugs.
They got the money to buy it. You will see that.
Click here. Yeah.
You damn sure might see something like that, man. But again, like I said, it's going to be pick your own poison, right? You have to be able to survive in that world but not be of that world. And I think that is still very difficult for most people to see where that line exists.
And that's why it's ugly, brother. And I'm going to slide out of that and slide into our Raising the Bar segment.
Let's raise it up then.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all type from near and far, you are now in store to raise your bar.
Yes, sir.
Brother Tone, the Raising the Bar segment today is going to be a little soliloquy, if you will. Little anecdote just on my personal road to recovery.
Okay.
I've been thinking a lot about just my desires outweighing my suffering. I've been through a lot. I know my testimony has power in it because I can feel it when I talk to people, right? Like I can see how it hit people and be like, damn, this thing that I don't even have time to sit and think about because I'm doing so many other things weighs on this person as I tell them this, right? And long ago, you once called me the most complete person you knew. Right, it shook me. We often don't realize how strong we are until we test it. And I've lived long enough to be battle tested, but then also earn my own stripes along the way. When I try to put my feelings of pain into words, I'm often stuck. They're bottlenecked into this emotional tug of war between what has already happened and what has yet to happen. For context, I quit my job long ago, my little safety net. I'm just going to prioritize everything that just kind of happened, a little, trauma vomit, if you will. So from the top, quit my job of a safety net. My dad passed away. I visited South America for the first time, first vacation I had in years. I then tore my Achilles. I opted out of surgery. I healed myself. And most recently, I was hit by an ice cream truck. Let's talk about my right leg from the knee down. Fractured my foot at 12. I was playing basketball on some mid-forces, right? My pops made me earn the right to wear Jordans. He would not buy them for me off GP. Like, I had to go out there, hustle, show him that I could play like Jordan in order to get some. I love him for that. I forgave him for buying me them Shaqs. At 16, I tore my ACL for the first time. Now, we're talking a varsity playoff football game just when, football would overlap basketball season by about a couple weeks, depending on how far you got in the postseason. I had ACL reconstruction surgery. I used the cadaver's patella tendon as the graft. I even wrote a thank you letter to the donor's family and everything. At 21, we're going to fast forward to another ACL tear, this time my senior year in college, right? I walk onto a D1 basketball team that no longer exists present day, and it was a non-contact ACL injury on the transition, in and out move, on the breakaway fast break. I still made the bucket and hit the free throw on some Kobe shit. I'd be living like that. But I say all that to say that the second time around allowed me to deepen my practice within my body. So my last semester of undergrad, when I was fully recovering, my electives were Ashtanga yoga and Buddhism, the birthplace of my yoga practice, as well as the rebirth of a spiritual practice. Then boom, I'm a wellness professional. I graduated, I'm CPR certified, I'm NASM certified, I'm actively pursuing PCUs or whatever the continuing education units. I'm training clients, I'm teaching students, I'm running businesses. And then the world stops, right? World stops, tear my Achilles at 31, and then obviously this accident that just happened at 32. I lay out this story because that's 20 years of training that allowed me to continuously heal, right? And the irony, I think, of this most recent accident is when I tore my Achilles, one of my main reasons for not getting surgery was I had this tattoo on my leg. And this tattoo was from a dear friend of mine that I bartered, and he's a tattoo artist. So we bartered. I taught him yoga, and then in exchange, he tattooed my leg for me. That art felt priceless to me, right? When I'm thinking of tragedy and people losing things, you can't put a price on a moment, right? A moment that lives with you forever. And I didn't want to get surgery because I didn't want to interrupt that moment. I'm like, I'm going to just let the body heal. The irony being, a year later to the date, I'm in this accident where my whole lower leg tattoo is scraped off physically, right? Now, I say all this to say a few things to just consolidate all of these feelings and bring it into one. Every rep counts. Life is what you make it. Expect the unexpected always. Stay on your course. When it comes to advice from others, eat the orange and throw away the peel. Now, Brother Tone, being as though you have dealt with an experience of rebuilding and recovering from a life-changing event yourself, what kind of advice could you give someone who is yet to experience such off the strength?
Honestly, when life stops you, you're going to have to rely on all the things that you might have taken for granted to get you through it.
Now, talk to me about life stopping you. How does that look?
Most recently, I think it was the car accident that I had, on my bike as well, that definitely sidelined some of the motion that I thought I was really going towards in at least the hosting side, the getting back in front of this whole new, just opening post-pandemic kind of years and all the rest of that kind of stuff, and jumping into a summer of biking, right? That was my main thing. That was not only my form of exercise, it was my form of community, it was my form of outreach to people, it was how I was staying connected in a time when we were all being disconnected quite purposely, right? And that stoppage wasn't just about the physical activity. It was also stoppage in the mental kind of aspect, man. It's hard for you to feel like growing when you're actually in the same position, when you're physically constrained. When you lose something that's an identifier for you, it's difficult to understand who you are sometimes, right? And why I said take appreciation of the things that are around you, the things that you might have taken for granted, because your actions should not define your character. Your actions are a part of, why you do what it is you do. But if I am only the things that I can physically do, when you can't do them anymore, who are you? And that was definitely something that I had to grapple with. It's definitely something that I spent some nights really trying to figure out, where was I going to go next? How am I going to keep going forward? When you don't have the thing that you really think that you are, who are you then, right? And it made me do a lot of the work that I've always had in the background, but never really applied it the same way. So I had a very similar exercise physiology background. I had, rehab. I've helped people through rehab, but I never had to do rehab for myself. It's a completely different experience. I've had the knowledge about doing different acts of stoicism, doing different acts of self-work, and doing all the rest of that, but I never had to apply it until I was at the bottom end of my barrel the same way. So it really is the normalcy that we put around some of the things that we take for granted. When you don't have that guaranteed, you appreciate it completely different. Bro, getting in and out of bed was a different game. Getting into the shower, taking any kind of independence that you take for granted throughout the course of your day, when you don't have the ability to do it anymore, your appreciation has to shift and your outlook has to shift, right? And my challenge to myself now is to remember all of those lessons when I'm past that point and still try to have that same appreciation of the day that I just gained that process back. Like, I remember the day I physically was able to walk without my crutches for the first time. I had to use a cane. The day that I was able to put two shoes on was a different type of day. Now, I fast forward through, I take that for granted. I get up, get dressed, all the rest of that kind of stuff. I don't appreciate it the same way that I did back then. And I want to kind of constantly remind myself that absent of that traumatic incident, I could still find that appreciation in the small things.
Man, I couldn't agree more. When you lay it out, I'm thinking about pace that we just talked about earlier, right? And really taking those moments to move intentionally, to take appreciation for something as simple as wearing two shoes. For me, I think the thing that I've struggled with the most in my healing process as of late is just this idea of, now that I'm healing and able to do a lot more than I used to be able to, I want to do even more than I should be, right? And I'm thinking about just not being able to have two shoes. Now I can put on two shoes. I can put on two shoes, a pair of socks. I want to run. I'm not in a space where I can run just yet, despite this boom and this, midnight and Nike and whatever they got going on after dark. Like, there are things that are being forced in front of you that like I physically can't participate in, right? And being able to hold myself accountable for not having FOMO, but having appreciation of being able to walk when I couldn't, right? And putting that in the forefront of like, you know what? Let me redirect and focus on what I can do in this moment to build up to what that next moment should feel like and can feel like when I get there. So that was what my Raising the Bar segment was about today, is really that look inward. And I know that this testimony is something that's relatable, right? Insert an injury, insert a person, insert a home, right? All of these things could be taken away from you in an instant. And this is one of those spaces where there's work that still has to be done. The world doesn't stop. In the event of tragedy, the only thing that I've found that the beauty in tragedy is the community that comes forward, that can help you. The community that goes unseen, that comes just to support you in that moment. And as long as you keep your mind open, keep your heart clear, keep your spirit clean, I think you'll be all right.
Man, I feel like you raised that bar, bro.
That's what I'm here to do. Now, we got to slide into a relaxation responsibly segment. Now, Brother Tone, this segment is brought in part to you by me. That is KR Jones, and I'm out here relaxing responsibly at Frequency Movement. That is where I will be teaching my elevated yoga class, as well as roll up and roll out that will be returning. The return of the stretching class that takes place. And we're starting back on the real MLK Day. That's the 15th.
Okay.
That's his government birthday, not the one we celebrate on the most convenient Monday, because that normally be after the fact. I'm talking about the real 15th. That's when we're going to start.
I like what you are doing, my friend. Now, how are you relaxing this week?
Man, I was relaxing this week because at the top of the show, you mentioned the invite to a vision board party with the good brother Purcell at the Dumbo House. Now, a vision board is something that I ain't never made. I ain't gonna lie. I might have clowned a few online, been too cool to do it, if you will. But when you are faced with actually planning what your year upcoming vision looks like, it's tough.
Yeah.
And you really have to look within in a moment of vulnerability around a bunch of other people.
Yeah, for sure. It was, for me, also a relaxing moment. It was kind of cathartic. I took mine probably way more serious than I needed to at that given time.
For the listeners out there, we were given a poster board that you could choose. Tony took the biggest board.
Because I got a big vision, bro.
There were people that took, I would even say, a quarter of Tony's board. That's how small people were going. You was dreaming big.
Yeah, I'm not committed to finishing that in the time that we were given for that. In fact, I'm still working on mine.
As you should.
Because I think
maybe we should continue together.
Yeah.
You know, there we go.
I want to continue that,
strength, if you will.
Exactly, man. I want that to be something that dictates where I want to go during the year, right? So I love the prompts that were put in front of us. I totally blew past the whole connection to the running community that was.
Yeah, for sure.
But I feel like my vision was
much
just
love
what it
to
was.
the runners. I am not that.
I love everybody that's in
a
that.
walker.
You know,
Proud walker.
I do look forward to bringing that back into the repertoire. I'm not gonna lie. It just might not have been on 2025 vision just yet.
What they called you on the football field? Flipper. School gonna be out there running.
That ain't funny, man. I'm gonna get me my wide toe shoes, and you ain't gonna be able to talk about my big feet no more.
Your natural athletics, man. Real rabbit foot.
You got to connect it all together, man. Much like the vision, you know. On the good foot, Kyle. Yeah, I really do appreciate even the ability for somebody to see what training on one side of their game could look like in a whole different side of their game. So community activation, where you're actually challenging people to think about themselves in this other direction, is something that is beautiful, right? And it's also, hey, how many people who only dedicate their life to running have ever put this together the same way? Like, have ever took that time to actually be like, no, this is what my run goals for the year is going to look like, right? I was throwing in a bunch of personal stuff. I'm throwing in business stuff. I'm throwing in biking stuff. You know, I'll save some space for a run in there. Mm-hmm. You know, I'll make sure I tie back in. But salute to Coach P for putting that out there. I got to make sure that, you know, we give that man the credit where credit's due. I said he's doing stuff innovative in the run community for a reason. I could see the play out. And even just the mixture of people that he had in there was definitely something that was chill, man. But God, we are in an unprecedented time of stress. I also wanted to unpack some maybe conventional means of relaxation, because there's a lot of different things that are stressing people out this week, man. So one thing that I wanted to recommend that maybe you put into, your bag of tricks when you're trying to kick back and relax a little bit more. We talked about this previously on the show, but float therapy, right? Float therapy is something that I think is pretty interesting. It's something that is one of my favorite ways to really decompress the whole body. I definitely got into it during the first part of my recovery during the accident, man. And I know you had some experiences with that too. Do you have anything you want to share?
Flow therapy was definitely something that I really enjoyed. The issue is I couldn't do that now with an open wound that's still healing.
Yeah, for sure.
So I can't really get into the salt water like that.
They do have a dry float as well.
I've done the dry float, not a fan.
Dry float not the same as the
it
wet
ain't the
float.
same game, you know what I'm
It's
saying?
kind of like other situations where dry versus wet to get you jammed up.
Exactly. You wear raincoats in the summer?
If you want to try out some type of float therapy, check out the good people at Lift Next Level Floats. That's where Kyle went, and I went over to Vessel Floats. Both of them out in Brooklyn. You can check them out. I'm going to go real regional right now. We're going to stay super local, right?
Okay.
Next thing I wanted to suggest for a level of relaxation. Now, we already talked about, you taking some level of roll up and roll out, and we already talked about the good guided
That's
classes
frequency movement.
at Frequency Movement that the
Wednesday,
brother
8
K.R.
p.m.
Jones is leading, right?
For sure.
In addition to that, how about a sound bath, Kyle?
I love a good sound bath. Shout out to the homie Atia that held it down. We were at Arterix where she taught us sound bath.
Okay.
And it is one of those experiences where you're solely there for the vibes, for the vibrations, right? And really having vibrational harmonies heal is an amazing thing.
Man, okay, so that one is always up there. There's a few different places you could check, like Sage and Sound or Ohm Center inside NY, And again, just looking up different people, I'll make sure we'll try to tap in with some of the people, that practitioners on that end that we could put out there too. Kyle, these next few came from Forbes, and they were talking about 25 things that were in this year. And recovery is going to be something that I feel like we were the purveyors of.
It was never out.
But I want to say that this one, I know we had a stamp on. It's going to be forest bathing, and then forest bathing is coming in hot for 2025, right? Now, you could take a mindful walk on one of New York City's parks, such as, Central Park, the High Line. What are some of your favorite outdoor spaces in New York, Kyle?
Man, I love a good outdoor space. Prospect Park.
Prospect is on there. I like the waterfront over in Brooklyn Bridge.
Valentino Pier.
Any of those things that you could really get your mindful, detachment from. Now, I know it's not complete forest, but there are some greenways in this great city that you can find yourself a little bit detached from the madness just for a little bit. And those things, honestly, some of the biggest takeaways that I've had during the whole lockdown situation, that this is going to be a good recharge. Okay, last few are going to be quick. Cold plunge therapy. Now, cold plunge therapy, we talked about, is going to be great for that inflammation you can work through, and places like Remedy Place, Great Jones Spa, or Bath House. Definitely places where you could go tap into that. Some are a little bit more social, some are a little bit more isolated. You do your own dilly-dally, you choose your own adventure on that front, right? Infrared saunas. Now, your guy from Don't Die was big on the infrared, right?
Yeah.
The effects of deep tissue heating has improvement on your circulation, which reduces muscle tension and leads to your recovery. And places like Portal, shout out to Pam out there, or Clean Market do have infrared saunas that you could definitely tap into. And last but not least is the same thing that we started off with. It's going to be explorations and creative expression, much like creating your own vision board, right? So anything that lets you to really tap into that artistic bag and just work through different emotions in a different medium can definitely be something that is going into the healing side, man. And again, I wanted to share these different things for healing because we're in a different type of time, man, and a lot more people need healing, Brother Jones.
That's a Fendi, brother. That's a hell of a list. That's such an alternative list.
I wanted to go all alternative. You know why, man? I feel like black people in particular, I'm going to talk to black men.
Okay.
If you are in a disproportionate space where you face uncommon types of stress, you should have uncommon types of relief to that stress readily accessible to you. That's really what I want to push it to, man. I'm not going to leave no stone unturned until we find all the different ways to alleviate the things that's bothering us the most, my man.
That's a fact. Just briefly, I have a quick anecdote. At my aunt's house years ago, they had the red light above in the bathroom. Mm-hmm. So as soon as you got out of the shower, that's how you dried. You had to turn the little knob on the wall. Red light would come on and make a little humming noise, and you just sit under there like a little,
piece of chicken, like some rotisserie
at Boston Market. You know what I'm saying? And you just let the light dry you. I was exposed to that type of thing as a child and never thought anything of it. I was just like, it's a little weird, but I'm into it. And now as an adult, look at me.
Shout out to your aunt. She was ahead of the game, man.
You got to, man. It sounds like you're hoping for something, brother.
Not quite just yet.
Oh, shit.
Before I get into the hope, I want to leave off with some mind over matter real quick, my brother. Now, this is, again, that personal development side of where I'm going through, right? And then 2025, turning into 2025, I do definitely want to really unpack some of the tools that I'm using personally to work through some of this stuff. Now, I'm still investigating the 12-week year, and a passage that stuck out to me this week was around common pitfalls. Often we set goals in life, and we can have a great plan to get to those goals. If we don't plan for the pitfalls when they come about, it is that much more detrimental to try to figure out where you want to go. And I go all the way back to the top in terms of acting out of, urgency versus acting out of desperation. All of those different things can be avoided if you really do take ownership of some of the common and your known pitfalls. There's going to be some unknown things that is going to be thrown out there and trip you up, right? Hurdles that you don't know about. That's going to be a learning opportunity that you could, take and move and strive with. The things that you do know about, though, those are going to be the things that always kind of be that limiting factor for you. So one of my biggest pitfalls that I've encountered recently on my own personal development goal is not allowing the interventions that I'm putting in place enough time to see the full fruit form from there, right? We talked long ago about the harvest, right? The seasons that you have to go through. You got to sow the seed before you get all the way through to the harvest. And sometimes, bro, when everything is going in a direction that you don't necessarily want it to go, when you put a new action in play, it might not give you the fruit that you need. The challenge for myself is sticking with that new action through a certain amount of time, and a lot of time, a period, like periodization, to see what the full fruit can bear, So as I struggle with that, I hope pointing out one of my pitfalls can help somebody else see a pitfall in their own process. If you know that you have it, here's an opportunity for you to work around it, and hopefully that puts you in the right direction, man. And that's going to be that mind over matter.
Appreciate that, brother. I mean, I'm thinking about just my own kind of pitfalls, and I would definitely agree to that harvest. When you really speak about growth and the time that it takes, instant gratification is not synonymous with success. And I think a lot of people fail to realize that in order to really be successful at something, it does have to be battle tested. You do think about those 10,000 hours of doing something and what it truly means to have a routine, to have something that you can calculate as success because of the reps you put into it.
Man, Kyle, and that's going to be the thing that I'm now hopeful for, Kyle. I want to hope that no matter what hardships you're facing and the current moments that are being expressed in your life that may have set you up for the first pitfall, may have set you up for the first hurdle, I'm hopeful that people can still find peace and still find a path towards whatever they call success in the next upcoming weeks, man. I want everybody to keep fighting for a better day. And if you keep doing that one day at a time, I think you ultimately get to a better place altogether.
Get to stack those days up to a better place, man. I love that. I am hopeful for those in need to have the power to ask for what they need specifically. As someone who was in need, still in need, having to ask for what you need specifically is going to empower those that can help you. And then that relationship becomes solidified and it's equal because now you're giving someone an opportunity to help in a way that they can, and you are fulfilling that need by accepting the help that you need.
Man, I want everybody to feel that out there, Kyle. And if they were fulfilling some of our needs, because we damn sure do have some asks that we want to put out there, right? If they needed to follow up on any of the things that we wanted to put out there to get that good help from, where would they go to get in contact with the good folks over here at Off the Strength?
You can visit offthestrength.com, or you can visit us on Instagram at offthestrength_. If you're in the greatest city in the world, that is New York City. Sometimes come on down to Rockefeller Center, where you can see us record live and direct at Newsstand Studios at the block of the Rock, at the bottom of the Rock. Can't make it in, you can always visit online at Rockefeller Center or X at Rockefeller Center NYC.
Once again, it's been another fantastic episode of Off the Strength. I'm a trainer called Tony.
KR Jones.
Peace and much love to y'all out there. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Peace. What's good, everybody? I'm a trainer called Tony, and I am here from the infamous Off the Strength podcast, asking you today, listeners, viewers, wherever you may be, to please like, listen, and subscribe to our podcast. This is how we're going to continue to be able to deliver you the best goddamn wellness information out here. So if you want to keep hearing this and you want us to keep growing, you are a part of this show just as much as anything else. So please go to offthestrength.com. Make sure you check out our blogs. Make sure you check us out on IG. And if you're hearing this voice and you didn't hit that subscribe button, know that Kyle is going to come looking for you.
You got that right.